Emma Mankey Hideem. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Glenn?
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for coming on the show. So Sunnyside VR, based in Washington, D.C., another DMV film and TV AV, but this is VR. So this is definitely something that I'm glad I finally had somebody kind of like in your arena on, because we can definitely delve into quite the massive progress that it's had. I think maybe you can correct me, but that I think it's had in the last year. But Sunnyside VR, Emma, tell me a little bit more about what you do, who you are, what you do, and what you've been up to.
Yeah, sure. So I founded Sunnyside VR in 2015, and it create content for brands. So a lot of that tends to be in the marketing space, but sometimes it's training and education and other things like that. I specialize in 360 video. So generally speaking, most of the VR experiences that I'm producing have at least some kind of video component. I'm not necessarily doing quite as much with like purely 3D animation type projects, although I have worked on projects that have elements of that as well. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. Like you said, VR has come a long way. When I first started this in 2015, the Oculus Rift, like DK2, I think was just coming out. And now we have the Quest 2, and it's just been quite a wild ride for sure.
Yeah, I think my buddy dumped about like 10 grand into his basement to have like a two-man VR Beat Saber, or we always play the zombie shoot 'em ups, just shooting up zombies, and he used to kick my butt when it came to the 2D controller first person shoot 'ems. But because of my numerous previous backgrounds, we got into VR where I was actually handheld. And he was like, "What the hell happened? You totally flipped the scoreboard on us." And I had all the high score kills and all that stuff. But yeah, VR is definitely a blast. And I think the first time I saw this, he even started dabbling in. I would come over, and I would go over. He's a close friend of mine. I've known him since we were 5 or 6 or whatever. So we were always big into games, big into comics, superhero stuff. And I would go over once a week. It was like a weekly thing. I'd go over and hang out with him, watch a movie, play games, drink beers, dinner or lunch or something. Maybe you do something throughout the whole day. When he got this thing built, he said, "We're going to watch a movie. We're going to watch a movie with some friends on VR." And it's this whole movie theater VR experience. And you can look left and right and see their avatars next to you. You can hear them chatting. And you've got your choices to mute all for yourself, to mute yourself, or to unmute, or to turn them down, or whatever. And that's great. And so they're going to chat it up, but you can control that. And that's what's really cool, is that it's this huge home entertainment experience. But so what do you delve into more specifically? Like, what is you were mentioning events and industrial, like, webinar type deals?
Yeah, so it's more like it's more like experiential marketing is kind of what I do. So I worked on a piece for Mercedes, and that went mostly on their social media, because Facebook and YouTube can do 360 content now, but also I think they put it on some headsets and brought it to car shows. So particularly if you're doing any kind of live event marketing, where you have people in a physical space, VR is great, but you can also add, for social media, you can just have it for regular people who have a headset. So yeah, most of what I do is in the kind of experiential marketing space, but then also sometimes I'm doing education or training. So maybe that's like an association educating their members about X topic, or maybe it's an educational video about the, or one specific example would be like, I did a piece about the impacts of indoor farming on like electrical grid, I guess, or like a power related issues pertaining to indoor farming. And so, it's a number of different things that I do, which is great. Actually, I love the variety, and it's taken me all over the country. And I got to film at like a wind farm in North Dakota, and I've been to like the Sun-Made Raisin factory. It's all just really kind of random sometimes almost, but it's really fun and I love it.
Yeah. So what got you into it?
So I was working for a company that does media for museums. And so I was producing everything from like 4K 3D films to like touchscreen interactive exhibits, And the project, museum that I was working for, my only real client at the time. I was full-time on this project, the College Football Hall of Fame, which is in Atlanta, Georgia now. And that was just when they were building it out in Atlanta, because it had been in South Bend, Indiana before that. And so they were moving it to Atlanta, making everything totally state of the art. It's a really cool place. Highly recommend visiting if you're even remotely into college football. Very high tech for a museum. But so we were doing, I was producing most of the pieces for that museum, but the one that became my baby was this one called Virtual Stadium. So we filmed in 360 as like the team was running out. So I'm like on this football field with 80,000 screaming people and fireworks and cheerleaders, and it was quite a trip. It was also very like trial by fire, because you couldn't mess up. You didn't get a redo. So, you know, I had to do it right every time, which was a little high pressure, but it was good. And it was an amazing experience. So, and then that was even before the headsets came out. Actually, this was the 2013 college football season. So originally at the College Football Hall of Fame, they had it on iPads, and you would just take the iPad and kind of look around the 360 video. Now they have headsets and stuff. So, you know, because the technology has advanced. But even then I was like, this technology feels promising. You know, like everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a tablet with the like accelerometer and compass and stuff. And like, then there started to be inklings of the VR headsets coming out. And so I was like, okay, like I think I'm going to do this. I felt pretty uniquely positioned. I was probably like, someone said once that I was probably like within the first 1,000 people to touch a 360 camera. And so, you know, I felt
that's
like
awesome.
uniquely positioned, and I always wanted to work for myself, but I knew I kind of needed a niche, and then I found my niche. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Yeah, it's unique to find a niche. I think I'm guilty of trying to be a jack of all trades, and you kind of have to be. For me, it was, you know, and I've mentioned this 1,000 times on the show before, but for me, it was, you know, actors always have a fallback as in realty or selling cars or you know, bartending. And what happens is, if you have a fallback, you're going to fall back on it.
Right.
And for me, it said, okay, all my fallbacks have to still remain within, you know, audio, video, events, you know, film, TV, whatever the case may be. And at some point, you know, I added acting to that, but my niche, but then I have my specific niches within each area within that bigger film, TV, audio, video arena. And my niche would be more, you know, law enforcement, military roles as an actor. Or it would be AD, production coordinator. You know, I've directed a number of things, and I've written, directed, and produced a number of things. Very, very independent stuff. And then when it came to the, you know, the bigger budget stuff, it's a lot of the AD department, or the production producer, production manager, production coordinator type of department. A few times holding a boom, a few times, you know, swapping lenses, you know, ACing or whatever. But really, it has to pay the bills. You know, you got to build the retirement. Being full-time freelance, you're like, you're actually hands-on with your own retirement and your own investments, long term. But then you're hands-on with your bills. You're like, you know what your monthly budget is, and you got to meet that, if not exceed it. And so that's where I started. So like you mentioned VR, you know, for me, what the new trend, stay on top of the trends, first off, was YouTube, and, you know, trying to, like, you know, dabble in YouTube and get that exposure, maybe get that ad revenue, and then build upon that. And then I started seeing podcasts, and then I started delving into when it came to the big money, started delving into live streaming events, you know, a camera or two, but streaming it to, you know, getting familiar with specific software, streaming it to their website, or streaming it to YouTube, or streaming it to their site or another corporate site or whatever, and knowing how to handle that, and blah, blah, blah. And then, but also saying, always keeping in my mind, this kind of technical expertise can help with podcasts, and starting some sort of channel, starting some sort of live show. And then when the quarantine happened, I did that. And then those people saw my show, and they said, bro, we're doing that now. So then I started, luckily I was blessed and stayed relatively, you know, well paid, well employed during this quarantine. You know, a lot of remote work, a lot of virtual work. How's that been for you? Has there been, how do I phrase it? How have you been impacted this last year, positively or negatively?
I mean, definitely negatively, but you know, it's getting a lot better again, but like, you know, I'd say for the first like 6 months, it was pretty dead. You know, everybody was panicking. Nobody
Even with
wanted.
VR.
Yeah, even with VR, because the biggest problem that I was facing was people didn't want to spend money because they didn't know how long they had to ride this out. They didn't know what the
Okay.
impact on their bottom line was going to be on this. And so, you know, I was trying to contact like cultural institutions and stuff and being like, hey, if you're closed, now's a great time to like do that virtual tour and things like that. And they were like, hey, we're sorry, we're just not spending money right now because we don't know how long we have to ride this out for. And
Right.
so, yeah, my client work definitely slowed way down. It picked back up maybe around like August, which was good. But so then I started the Game Show of Love, which is what this background is about, which isn't VR, but it is interactive. And I specialize kind of like one of my things is like giving the audience agency. And that's part of what I love about VR is it kind of gives the audience agency, even if it's just a 360 video and you're just looking around, that's still some agency. And then, you know, you add interactivity on top of that, and that's even more agency. So
You
in the
said
Game Show of Love,
Game Show of Love.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it takes place over Zoom.
What
Every other
else?
Wednesday.
What
Yeah,
else?
right. And 6 contestants play, but the audience gets to participate too. So the audience can submit questions to ask the contestants. They get to vote who goes on. We send contestants on little mini dates where we kick 4 people out of the Zoom for 3 minutes and use the 2 people just go on the 3-minute mini date. And the audience gets to pick who goes on those, and then they can chat with each other. And at the end, they kind of weigh in on what matches they hope happen and things like that. So it's really fun and interactive. And I started that as like an alternative revenue stream once, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic when the client work kind of came to a screeching halt very suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, now we just started our 2nd season. So the first season we were doing it weekly, but this season, because I do have a lot more client work now, like since that has picked back up, I'm just doing every other week for the show for the 2nd season. But it's super fun, really lighthearted, and it definitely, I mean, it didn't make me like a ton of money. I'm definitely not like wealthy or anything now, but it certainly definitely helped me survive and
Absolutely.
the pandemic.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, absolutely. I mean, and plus it's a positive thing. Game Show of Love. It's more of it's a positive thing, but like you said, it kept you active, and it you know, I hope at some point this podcast is able to somehow generate revenue. This is completely, I don't have the viewership yet. That's the whole point of this, is to build the viewership and maybe build that ad revenue. But you know, day one, I think March 12th. I think, you know, March 12th is when me and the wife and the baby boy sheltered in, you know, hunkered down. And I think it was 2 days later, the 14th or the 15th of March, I called my colleagues. This was our 3rd try at this podcast. And even before quarantine, you know, I always bring this up because it's hilarious. We have tried this podcast virtually even before quarantine. And I would have, and based on my terrible setup then, because I was so frigid with money, frugal, rigid and frugal, frigid. So I was so frigid with money, I refused to get the, you know, the unlimited premium package of Zoom then. So, you know, I would have them both call on Google Hangouts and both call on Skype, but I could only take one video from one and then take the other person's video from the other one and bring that in when I had a hard camera. And then I'm doing the recording, and it was such a shit show. and then even before that, we tried something else and it didn't work out. But I said, listen, you know, I got to stay busy, got to stay active. I had a couple of passion projects in the can, edited those probably in a month. But you know, with the podcast, it was like, let's do it over. And you know, hundreds of other folks were like, yeah, absolutely. What is it to, you know, chat for an hour or two? We're all quarantining, we're all staying home, and that was definitely a way for me to take advantage, stay active, talk to other people, share stories, you know. And so Game of Love sounds amazing. I definitely want Game Show of Love, that's what it is. Yeah, and links in the description, and I'll definitely get those links from you. I want to check that out myself. But you know, it's definitely the opportunity. This whole past year has definitely been the opportunity to take advantage of time to be creative and experiment. Still, the importance was to still stay active and productive in one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I mean, the game show of love basically was a social experiment to a degree. I wasn't sure it was going to work at all. And like, luckily it kind of took off. So, you know, that's been really nice. And we built a community around the show, because we do like after the show, we do virtual hangouts. I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from people about how it's so nice that they can meet new people at a time when it's almost impossible to meet new people,
Right.
and have a sense of community. And then, I mean, we keep everything very positive and drama free. You know, it's not like a reality show or something. So everything's just fun and lighthearted, and
Yeah.
it's a good time. And yeah, it was a necessary pivot to keep myself busy. But I think I'm pretty, and it pushed my limits, because like I chose to be behind the camera for a reason. And so like then I had to jump in and host this show because I created it, and that was actually, I think it really helped me grow a bit too. So it was like a nice sort of pushing myself out of my own comfort zone as well.
Yeah. So I asked a lot of folks this, depending on what they do. Have you been back out in the field, back out on location, back on set?
Yep. Yeah. Mostly outdoors still, whenever possible. I've done a couple shoots indoors. You know, people are definitely good about masking and that kind of thing, but indoors still makes me nervous. So whenever possible, I try to book things that are outdoors. But yeah, I've been back in the field. Like I think I mentioned filming a wind farm in North Dakota, which was really cool. I filmed some like surgical demonstrations. Those were indoors. And yeah, it's been really, you know, really nice to be back in the field. That's my favorite part of all of this. I love just being out in the field, meeting new people, learning new things, trying new technology sometimes, because sometimes people want me to use cameras that I actually like I'm not that familiar with, or things like that. But yeah, it's been I'm really happy that things have picked back up.
A surgical demonstration, like when you've got the observers on that higher level looking down?
So this was a little bit different, because they were doing the surgical demonstration on cadavers, so we were just in the room with it.
Okay.
So yeah.
I always think of that episode of Seinfeld when he dropped the junior mint. Did you ever see Seinfeld? Did you ever see that episode?
I didn't see that episode, no.
They went to a surgical observation, and Kramer dropped a junior mint into the body because he's an idiot. So that's definitely one to look out for. It's a good one. It's funny. But okay, so yeah, cadavers. All right, so you don't have to be too cautious or concerned about the body, I guess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We didn't have to like scrub in or anything like that. We had our masks because of COVID, but that was about it.
Yeah, bare hands and all, right? They're just cutting it up, right?
Yeah.
Well, so what's next on the agenda? What's next on the agenda for Emma and Sunnyside VR? What's the next set of goals? Say 6 months to a year from now.
Sure. So, I mean, I have a number of passion projects, and I've, you know, been able to move some of those forward with some of the extra time that I've had during COVID. One of being a feature-length documentary about an artist named Mark Klein, who's from Central Virginia. He does like large-scale fiberglass sculptures, like dinosaurs, monsters, fun like roadside attraction-y type stuff, and he's just a zany guy in general. And so that's in post-production right now, and it's been great to be moving that forward again, because it definitely sat on the shelf for a little while. It's called Blue Ridge Barnum. A couple other miscellaneous passion projects that are not quite as far along, but like one, since we were talking about VR, one of them is actually trying to see, it's like a pilot test study to see if we can use VR to help reduce bias across political divisions and other cultural divisions here in the US, because I feel like, you know, the country's becoming so polarized and people don't interact with each other anymore. So I'm kind of building like a virtual exchange program where you go visit people who are different than you in their homes in VR, and not live, but it's pre-recorded, but they're like talking to the camera. You feel like they're talking to you. So it's, you know, we'll see. It's totally like a test run, just doing with a handful of people to start. And then the idea is if we can prove that it works, then we would do it at the larger scale. So it's been fun to be able to move those projects forward. And I would like to continue to move those projects forward in the next 6 months. For the game show, it is something that I think will live on after COVID. I think it actually will translate really well into a live event. So like, I guess hopefully 6 months or however long from now, we're out in the world again and can do live events. And so hopefully I'll be transitioning the show to that format. And then, yeah, just continuing client work and VR stuff. I'd love to do more with the travel industry. I've done a little bit, but that's like a niche I would really love to get into more. And yeah, just hopefully growing my business. I hired my first employee recently, which is exciting.
Oh, wow.
But I'd, love to hire more, and I particularly love to hire a salesperson because I hate sales side of the
Oh
business.
yeah. I need,
Um,
I need a sales. I need marketing and sales. I need,
mhm.
what else do I need? I need a manager and an agent.
Yeah,
It gets exhausting, self-submitting
yeah,
and trying to self-book
yeah.
and market yourself and promote yourself. It's crazy. I mean, yeah, I certainly can't afford it at the moment, but
Yeah.
maybe one
And
day.
then you come up with the problem where like when you have work and you're busy working, then you can't be, selling or submitting yourself for other projects too. And
Right.
so like then that kind of creates this like wave effect of like being really busy and then like not very busy for a while. But
No,
yes,
and
I
you
would love to hire a salesperson for sure.
and a funny story with that is there's been a number of acting gigs I'd be on, and we'd be there for like a 12-hour day, 10-hour day, even an 8-hour day, like a full day, on an acting gig, and there's no cell phone signal. And so I'm asking around like, hey, what's the Wi-Fi code? And they start getting annoyed. And I'm like, listen, if I'm going to be sitting in the green room for an hour and a half, then you put me on set for 30, 40 minutes. And I'm going to sit in the green room for an hour and a half. And there's no cell phone signal here. And there's a Wi-Fi code. Come on, man. Let me get that Wi-Fi code so I can book my next week, my next month of gigs. And some people will get annoyed with that. And I'm like, listen, you sit here for a whole day out of contact with family. What if now I'm married with a kid, but this was 5, 6 years ago. So it's like,
Yeah.
bro, what if,
Yeah, and even just if you're sitting around in a green room, you're bored anyway. So like might as well give you the ability to do something.
let's be honest. I brought a book. I might read it, but I'm going to sit here and try to book other gigs,
Mhm.
check emails, respond to texts, check on my wife and kid, things of
Yeah.
that nature. And it's like, you kind of have to do that. And, I forgot. I just forgot the point that you
So
mentioned.
I had been talking about wanting to hire a salesperson. So
Yeah.
well.
So I don't have to sit there and book
Right.
stuff myself.
Yeah.
I can just read the book and relax, and then the only thing I would have to focus on is responding to the wife and the kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's funny you mentioned earlier, like people were concerned. They didn't know how long. And me and the wife just talked about this, I think earlier today or yesterday. They were saying this thing was only going to be like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then
But
September it hunkered down again, and now restaurants are just now opening up, I think, at 25% capacity because people don't want to sit outside, so they're opening up inside at 25%.
yeah.
But yeah, I that's the thing when it comes to VR is you got to have the headset. And I think the beauty of it is Google has, Google Glass. You can do that whole thing with your phone, and you set that up. So that's cheap.
Yeah.
But for me, like before quarantine, I was too cheap to get the premium package of Zoom. The second quarantine happened, I bought it like that. What's $100 or 150 or whatever it was, And so, yeah, I kind of get that with the cost of actual gear, or there's, those nodes. You got to have those 4 nodes in the room or something like that to read you. And
Yeah, well, not anymore. So that's the greatest thing is the Oculus Quest has inside out tracking. So that means the trackers are built into the headset.
oh,
And so you don't have to have this like mapped out, 6x6 space with 4 different sensors in the corner. You just have this standalone headset, and it also doesn't need a computer to run as like the old Oculus did, the Rift. Yeah.
oh, what about the wire? Is it wireless now?
It's wireless. Yep.
Yeah, because
Totally wireless.
I remember when my buddy first set up his thing, it had the wire, and there was a
Mhm.
couple of times they get yanked back. I'm moving around, and you get your get your head yanked back.
Yeah, people
Whiplash.
get tangled in it. They turn around
Yep.
and it's wrapping itself around you. Yeah. So
Next thing you know, everything goes dark,
yeah.
and he's like, "Bro, you just yanked it out." I'm like, "Oh no!" So
Yeah. And as much as I don't love Facebook, who owns Oculus, I do think that they've made a lot of really smart moves with their hardware, because you have like the HTC Vive, but they're much more focused on like really high end, professional, enterprise solutions, and they aren't worrying so much about things like wireless, even though I think that for consumer adoption, that's actually extremely important. And so I think that Oculus has done a really good job of making a headset that consumers want and eliminating some of those barriers, like the wires, like the external sensors, and like having to plug into a fairly fancy computer, because before, it wasn't even just any PC you could plug in the Rift into. It had to be like a high-end graphics card with like decent RAM and things like that, and now it's all standalone. It's pretty affordable. I want to say, I think like the Quest is like $599 or something like that. And then you also have the Go, which is, that one doesn't have motion sensors, so you can only kind of do 360 experiences where you sit in a swivel chair and pivot around. But that's only $200 and still really fun. So I think Oculus has done a really good job moving the technology forward in a way that is consumer friendly and consumer oriented versus some of the other brands who are a little more focused on like the higher end kind of thing.
Yeah, and for me, when I first saw my buddy's setup, and he showed me then that contraption you stand in and you can run and it slides or whatever. The first thing I thought was, man, I'm gonna kill two birds in one stone: workout and play video games.
Yeah.
Because I want to say it was like 2011, 2012. I finally, pulled the trigger on getting the Xbox Connect. And I was doing all the real simple workout games with Xbox Connect, and it keeps you motivated because you see your score building, and then Beat Saber, that's a workout. And then there was a couple other games he has that are very physically interactive, but then I always liked the sword fighting games, and then you have to duck. I think there's something called Gladiators or something like that, and you play a Spartacus, Spartacus type character that's building rank in that time, in that era. But that was, for me, it was like, oh man, this is like the next revolution. Video working out, kids are going to be all over this working out. Dance Revolution, like 20 years ago or whatever those games were, where you're jumping around on those pads.
Yeah.
And so you can be super like physically interactive.
Yeah.
And you got a whole bunch of funny, fail videos on YouTube from people just smacking each other or like running into walls.
Yeah. It's still a tiny bit perilous. You got to clear your space out and make sure you're not going to trip and fall.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we don't have to delve into this if you don't want to, but why don't you like this? Why don't you like Facebook?
Oh, I think that their privacy rules are extremely problematic. I think that the way that they feed us content is meant to polarize us, actually, and they've even kind of been responsible for escalating genocide with, I don't know if you know anything about like the Rohingya. I don't know if I'm saying that right at all, because I've only ever read the word. But it was like they were sort of amplifying messages within certain communities against this ethnic group, and then that ethnic group was being more and more persecuted, and that kind of like echo chamber fishbowl effect that Facebook is creating, where we're interacting with people who disagree with us less and less, is problematic. And I also just think they've shown very clearly many times that they're not an ethical company. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, that's just your opinion. Absolutely. No, I still have yet. I think me and the wife watched like the first 5 minutes of this movie, The Social Dilemma, on Netflix.
I heard it's good. I haven't watched it because I feel like I'm already kind of mad enough.
Well, we just finished The Vanishing. We just finished Crime Scene, The Vanishing at Cecil Hotel. And again, that is another way that Facebook, there was a lot of cyberbullying to this one person, this death metal musician. Everybody started, blaming him, even like outright accusing him of being her murderer. And it turns out he was there a year before Elisa Lam was there. And my criticism is, that show could have been done in 2 hours and not 4 1-hour eps. It could have been a 2-hour documentary, but they really stretched it out for that viewership and for like to fill that, you know, to make some content. But
Yeah.
I'm fascinated.
They do that a lot.
Yeah, well, around here they used to, some of the production companies moved, some of them stayed, but I want to say from 2014 to maybe 2019, there was 4 or 5 big production companies that shot all those ID crime shows, those docudrama, crime reenactment. You got the talking heads, and then you have the dramatic reenactments that are filmed, and those that's sort of you know, production structure. And I played, you know, probably 40 different times. I played a cop or a detective or a stepfather. One time I was the perp, and so long story short, then I got the idea to produce 2 web series that are shot in that crime drama, the crime reenactment kind of structure, but one set in the DC universe, one set in the Marvel universe. So they're episodes about supervillains instead of like, you know, real life criminals, but it's totally shot and totally kind of pushed as if real, you know, these docudramas. Yeah. But on these supervillains, one in DC, one in Marvel. So now I am kind of, me and the wife are now kind of into those structure. I like seeing what kind of level that they're made at, and to you know, so as we you know, we were in the middle of shooting season 3 and 4 of both my shows. So as we you know, get out to 5 and 6, maybe add like new levels of production to the show. But yeah, you know, it was definitely intriguing. I even remember the Lisa Lamb elevator video that was on that was released on YouTube in 2013. It was freaking everybody out, all these web sleuths, and to finally watch this 7-8 years later and to see, you know, how it kind of got carried away. The police uploaded that elevator video to get just to get those web sleuths, or just to get the public to maybe give them to get some help from the public. But then it just kind of turned into like its own thing and stuff like that. But yeah, the social experiment, but then the social dilemma is what I saw was even more unique. Is you have those talking heads, you have those interviews from the real life people, but it's almost like they shot a legit movie as the dramatic reenactments. They cut to this cinematic narrative with recognizable actors, you know, big name actors from big name movies that are now playing, I think, real life people. But then they cut back to like these interviews with former real life members of Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So yeah, I mean, I'm well aware that me and the wife, we butt heads a lot. She's like, you post all this stuff, but you never post the Valentine's Day post for of the 3 of us. And I said, no, I don't. If something's gonna go viral, and if something's gonna like get out of hand, I'd rather it be my production stuff. It's all promotion for my website and for the podcast or other web series. And if something's gonna like get 1 million likes, it's got to be that's going to pay the bills. I'd rather not put personal stuff out there, because that's going to get misconstrued. That someone's going to take advantage of that somehow. And listen, we have like these more private, secured little social, you know, like photo circle that we use, where there's like 15 people on it that we can all share all these photos and videos of me and the wife and the baby. So I couldn't agree with you more. Rohingya?
Yeah.
I'll find it.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but they're a Muslim sect who, I think it's in China that they're being persecuted, if I remember correctly. I should probably brush up on my current events again. And this was, I mean, this kind of came to a head a couple of years ago, and Facebook played a not insignificant role in it. And yeah, I mean, I have more and more friends getting off Facebook. I can't because of business stuff. Like you said, I mean, I still post some personal stuff, but not a lot. And mostly I'm on it to like run the game show group, because that's where our community really lives, as a Facebook group, and then like, you know, market the show and market my business. But yeah, I'm posting like less and less personal stuff for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, agreed, you know, YouTube's owned by Google, and then you've got all sorts of, you know, matters with that. But I mean, I've been on YouTube for so long already, and I really don't have that many complaints as far as what kind of YouTubing I've been doing. And that's majority of what I watch. You know, I watch a lot of short form stuff, stuff that I'm interested to then build on more ideas and maybe build more structure for. You know, this episode you and I are on is more one-on-one. It's very specific to our niches, but then we have roundtables, and we always I have semi-regular roundtables with semi-regular guests. It always turns out to be talking about investing, Marvel, DC, pro wrestling, or music and movies. You know, it's like, and that's kind of what we talk about here on the one-on-one stuff. It depends, whatever we start, you know, dabbling into. But, you know, back to the game show of love, back to Sunnyside VR. What drives you? What drives your decision making? What drives your career progression? What drives you?
I'd say learning. I love learning new things. So, I mean, that's part of why I was attracted to media in the first place. I spent some time in documentary before I moved into VR. I love becoming basically a mini expert in a bunch of different topics that can range from, you know, the College Football Hall of Fame. I became a very big college football expert. Not that a lot of that trivia knowledge is probably not really there anymore because it's been like 6-7 years. But yeah, I really love learning. And so, you know, with the VR, I mean, all of the video technology is constantly changing, but like with VR in particular, because it's so early days, there's still so far that it can go, and it changes every year. I mean, the camera rig I'm using now is completely different from the camera rig that I was using when I started, and the software I'm using is different and all of that. So I like having to push myself to learn new skills, to learn new things, to become a little mini expert in various topics. And I also love variety. And so I want a job where I'm doing a lot of different things every single day. I as much as I have a niche, but I'm also a bit of a jack of all trades. And like, I'm in VR, but I'm doing the shooting, I'm doing the stitching of the footage, I'm doing the post-production, I'm doing the project management, the pre-production, sometimes the casting, whatever, and so like I can do all of those things, and I kind of am a jack of all trades, but it's like within the VR niche, although I still do some traditional video too. But yeah, it's like learning and variety. Those are sort of the two things I would say that drive me.
Yeah. And, you raised a good point. This always sticks out in my mind. So I was working on those crime shows, those supervillain crime shows I mentioned to you. And I get a lot of, I'll search for I'll Google for all these supervillain comic panels. And sometimes I might have to make some alterations to them because it's a fan series, but it has to fit in. And so I was doing this live streaming gig at a corporate industrial live streaming event. It was like one of those 3-day events at a conference center at one of the, those events at conference rooms at hotels for 3 days. And somebody at the podium just said something, and it had to do with like finances or tax or accounting, and something clicked. And it dawned on me, if I'm making these alterations to these pictures that are in color in Photoshop, just to put them in Final Cut, to have either them black and white or sepia, I should take the photos right now, make them all black and white. Then in Photoshop, it's just simpler. I'm either editing a black color or a white color, and then dumping in Final Cut to still be either black and white or add sepia to it. And it just dawned on me that, with that, like, because she just said something. And even though the conference is about something totally different than what I do, they said something that was like an aha moment for me. And I think I have aha moments. I did another gig on tech ed, education technology. And they were talking about, like flip chart, and they were talking about this other app that lets kids kind of build blocks and utilize puzzle making. And there's a Lego. And so I saved all those links to my thing, because I could use that Lego thing for constructing a diagram of a set or a prop. And then you can also take your schematics and put it into a 3D printer. Oh, cool. And so down the road, I might utilize that for prop making if I was to do that. I could experiment with all sorts of stuff. And then there was something else, Picker Wheel. And there's this site called Picker Wheel, and I could set up an account with that. And on the podcast, have this live raffle on the podcast. Picker Wheel, yeah. If you look up, if you Google pickerwheel.com, and you can do like a live raffle, a live Wheel of Fortune type deal.
Yeah.
And that would work great for Game Show of Love. That could
yeah,
work.
I was just thinking that I was because definitely when we're a physical live event show, I'm definitely gonna have like a spinner. So
a Wheel of Fortune type deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget what are those generic wheels called? I guess they are called picker wheels, maybe.
Yeah, or
but
like spinner, I don't know.
yeah, spinner wheels. Yeah, but you know, it's like this digital thing, and you implement all these different names. Everybody that enters the raffle, you got 5 minutes to enter your name on the raffle. Go to this link. They enter their name, and you know, if you're somebody like me with 10 emails, you might be able to enter a name 10 times, but not that many people like us would have 10 emails. They might only have one. They enter it once, and then you hit, you know, like first try or whatever, and you've got like this live digital virtual remote raffle, Wheel of Fortune, lottery, whatever the case, whatever you want to call it. And it's just learning new things from, you know, ed tech. Kind of maybe 25% of that I would use. But you know, at this accounting thing, I'm learning all sorts of stuff. I'm kind of taking notes like, oh shit, I didn't think that I could have logged all my mileage for being full-time freelance. They just mentioned this app. This app's dope. Investing app, or QuickBooks Self-Employed. I forgot who I learned QuickBooks Self-Employed from, but I use that 24/7 for all my expenses and taxes and income and essentially my taxes at the end of the year. So it's you know, I couldn't agree more. Just always learning something new from all sorts of all these different random gigs, you know. So is it too late to say, would it be too late to say to you Happy New Year? It's, what is it, February? It's mid-February. Is it too late to say Happy New Year?
No,
no,
I don't think so.
Okay, so I mean, what? No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I can't believe it's mid-February already, honestly. Like, I technically, I have like on my to-do list to like send out New Year's email campaigns still. So
too late for that, right?
Yeah.
Well, not to you, but so okay, so so it's not too late to say Happy New Year. So what's the new year, new you, the new Emma, the new normal Emma, the new year, new you? What is that? When I say that, what comes to mind?
So a friend of mine was like, I'm picking a word for like my 2021. And so I decided to pick a word for my 2021, and it's shine. And what I mean by that is ostensibly, I'm trying to, you know, I'm the face of the Game Show of Love. I'm not used to being the face of anything. I'm used to being behind the camera. And, you know, I think, you know, we know each other through the Be on TV boot camp. And so I'm trying to get myself established as an expert, being on TV, being quoted in articles, whatever, and just get my name out there more. You know, and particularly because I don't love the sales side of things, it's great if you can leverage that publicity and things like that to get clients to come to you instead of you having to go out and like cold call or whatever. So I think for me, it's about like putting myself out there, being confident, and owning that I am an expert at this. I've been doing this longer than most people for VR stuff specifically, and I probably was like the first or one of the first companies in DC doing this. And you know, technically I was doing it even before I started my company because I was doing it for the College Football Hall of Fame. So it's, yeah, I'm just trying to own that I'm an expert and get my name out there and my face out there, and just be more comfortable on camera even too.
Yeah, that took me a while. And I've been doing film and TV for 16 years. 05, been doing film and TV, went full-time freelance in 09, and never really wanted to be in front of the camera. The military changed that for me. I went into the National Guard, so that's like part-time, you know, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer, and that broke down all my self-consciousness. I was in much better shape after basic and MP school. So when I came back, I was in great shape. I looked great. So I was more comfortable being in front of the camera. And then at one point it was like, you know, when I get home, you know, I know a number of people and I know how to book crew gigs, but I really gotta fill the schedule in and hit the ground running full-time freelance again.
Mhm.
And so that's when I started delving into the acting, and it happened right away. And I'm blessed. That's really all I can say. And when I look back, it's funny you said shine for 2021. When I look back at 2020, and then when I look back at a number of years, but especially 2020, I got to say blessed. I don't
Mm.
know if it's luck. I don't know if I had hindsight then, or if I was blessed to just luckily or blessedly make certain decisions or what. But like things just kind of like wiggle their way through. Like it's I've always just been like by the skin of my teeth, but a little bit more than by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I understand that.
yeah, and you know it's funny when you say the word for 2021 is shine. I'd say my word for 2021 is 2022. Like it's just going to be the same. And so
Mhm.
so for me, like whatever it was I was doing in 2020 and in 2019, I'm going to do throughout 2021. Just check boxes, grind, and then let's see what 2022 looks like. But
Yeah.
I mean, for anybody looking for perfection,
Oh,
anybody looking for perfection, you're just gonna keep saying the next year.
oh yeah, for sure.
Well, 2023 then, no, 2024 then, 2025. But
Yeah.
you know, uh, you just it's up to us to make the best out of it. And I think I did.
Mhm.
Obviously, you did. Um,
Yeah, I'd say my word for 2020 was adapt, which I did, and it I granted I started 2020 with kind of a pessimistic outlook, and boy did I have no idea how bad it was even going to get. But so I was like determined after everything that we've been through this year to start 2021 with a more positive outlook, and even knowing that yes, the pandemic is still happening, it's not going away anytime soon, but I did adapt in 2020 and things went pretty well. And um, I think it can only improve from here, right? Like I can't. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to jinx it. Now I'm like, oh shit, knock on wood. Like I don't want to jinx anything. But yeah, I think I wanted to go into this year with more positivity, more intentionality, and uh, even if that's just positioning myself for a good 2022, that's still a good thing to do.
yeah, and so when you kind of do that, it's not necessarily pessimistic. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily overly optimistic either. You know, for me, when I say 2021, 2022, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, just keep doing the same thing, keep plugging away, keep doing what you're doing, you know, perfect it better, get better at it, experiment a little bit more. Everything that I was already doing, just keep doing for 2021 what you did for 2020, and let's shoot for 2022. And the next thing you know, it's 2023, and the next thing you know, it's 2024, and the next thing you know, you had all these gigs and you had all these projects, you
Yeah.
finished them already, and they're
Yeah.
already out there. You know, like baffling enough, you know, like I forget about something, and I found a gig that I acted in 3 years ago. It was released a year ago, and I
Mm.
found it, and I was like, oh crap. And I started like, you know, sharing it and posting it up, and people were like, this
Mhm.
is amazing. And I'm like, because I've been so busy, I'm forgetting shit.
Yeah.
And then I go back to like some list, you know, like you kind of go back on things, and you're like, oh man, let me find that freaking thing. Where the hell was that thing? And then you find it, and it's like, oh man, because you were just so engaged.
Hmm.
And I think, you know, like when I think of the word engaged, there was this quote where somebody interviewed Beyonce. Beyonce was so engaged in like prepping and practicing and rehearsing for something that she forgot to eat for 3 days.
Oh,
She wasn't starving herself. She just forgot.
yeah.
She was just so engaged in recording and writing and rehearsing and prepping. And someone was like, and then she started feeling ill, and she's like, I didn't eat for 3 days. And so she had to like eat and maybe take some, maybe get a saline shot or a vitamin shot or something. But maybe that's a bit of an exaggerated story that I overheard. But that I realized that had happened. And it's not like I'm a slob, but there was times where I forgot to shower for 2 days. I was like in the bed and out. And I'm like, like rubbing my tongue across my teeth, like, I haven't showered in 2 days. All right, let me stop and go take a shower and like do some laundry. God only knows what I smell like right now, but I was just so engaged in this gig. It was a gig I was working, and it was just like checking box, checking off shots on the shot list, checking off days on the schedule. And it's like, bro, I haven't showered in forever. Let me go. Can you give me like an hour? And can you give me like twice a long lunch break and go shower?
Yeah, I once almost burned my house down because I was just making ramen, but I was making ramen while I was editing, and I forgot about the ramen on the stove to the point that it like charred the pot, like all the water boiled off. It like charred the pot. I think the smoke detector went off, which was what eventually alerted me to it. So I totally get that, like being so engaged, you forget to eat. I don't think I'd ever forget to eat for 3 days because I would just be like hangry by then. But definitely feel like been like, oh shit, it's 4 o'clock and I haven't eaten lunch. Oops.
That's probably what happened. She's probably started getting hangry, and they're like, "What is your problem?" And she's like, I'm hungry. I'm freaking hungry.
Well, and at a certain point, you get really tired because I've like had situations where I was sick, you know, or like and couldn't really eat or things like that, and you just get really tired if you don't eat for a while.
Yeah. And that's happened to me, and like I start realizing like I'm dragging. Why am I dragging? Let me just go get a Cliff Bar or something, or a granola bar. Finish this thing. And what's even worse is me and the wife, you know, we were experimenting with intermittent fasting. So we were only eating from like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And those mornings were rough.
Oh yeah.
Those
I've done that. I actually,
disastrous.
for whatever reason, I often am not hungry in the mornings. And so I'll just take advantage of that. Like if I'm hungry, I'll eat, but if I'm not, I'll do intermittent fasting and eat not until like 11. I actually haven't eaten today. I just wasn't hungry. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's time to start right after this. So, but yeah, if there was one last point, one last bit of advice, one last idea you'd want to share, what would that be?
That's a big question. I guess just hang in there for people, because we are still in the middle of this, you know, pandemic, and it is still many months before, you know, life is going to return to even a resemblance of normalcy. And so like keep adapting, keep hanging in there. I know it's tough, but we'll get through it, and we're through at least the bulk of it, I think, hopefully. So yeah, I think just hang in there, everybody.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. No, that works. I mean, yeah, adapt. I mean, that was a big thing that we all had to do, is adapt. And a lot of people were able to, some people weren't.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of folks, I mean, I had a conversation with somebody who was worried, and I'm like, listen, you know, America has a lot of problems, but I can speak for America. This is America. We've gone through quite a bit before. Yeah, but what if this crashes? I'm like, no, man, this is America. We're going to be all right. It's really got to be something for the structure of for the basic structure of America to change.
Yeah.
You know, love it or hate it, this country is known for resilience, perseverance, catching up.
Yeah. And you know, it's going to be an adaptation as we slowly start to go back toward normal life too. And I also would, I guess, advise people like take it a little slower. I know a lot of people are probably gonna like want to go party the second they like have enough of their friends vaccinated or whatever. But I think you might be surprised that like how anxiety inducing that can be once you haven't done that for a really long time. Because I had a super bad knee injury in 2017, and I like really couldn't do a lot for like 6 whole months. I had 2 surgeries and everything. And when I tried to go to a concert for the first time, I had a panic attack, because it was just like I hadn't been around crowds in 6 months. And so I think it's going to be a struggle for people, but you know, hopefully just adapt slowly and dip your toe in. And I mean, for some people, they might be totally fine diving in head first, but I think some people are going to try that and going to realize like, oh no, that was a bad idea. Let me like slowly dip my toe in now.
Yeah, that's you know, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that, and I never thought of that some folks might have anxiety attacks from like a year and a half of
Yeah.
being around huge crowds, and I never really did like them anyway. I never really went to concerts.
Mm.
You know, big movie theaters always annoyed me. Long lines, you know, I can't stand long lines. I would always do stuff at home anyway. So
Mhm.
this quarantine, this virtual thing wasn't a problem with me. I was always a big fan of like smaller pubs, you
Mhm.
know, local joints, that kind of mentality. You know, the same bar where I know the owner or I know the bartender and I know he's there. He might send me a text, hey, I'm over at you know, Rockland's barbecue. So and I would go there
Mhm.
when he's there, and I would chill out there all day, take my laptop, just drink beers and relax in a more in a much chiller kind of environment instead of huge concerts.
Yeah.
I was never no, go
I
ahead.
do, no, I was gonna say, I do love concerts. That is probably the only huge crowd activity I miss. I don't really miss bars actually, and like especially crowded bars. But I do miss concerts. That's like really the one crowd activity that I.
No. I've legitimately left bars. If it was hard for me to walk through this place, I just bounced. I said, I'm not doing it, man. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't miss the music blasting and yelling to each other, even though you're standing right
What?
next to each other. Yeah, exactly.
Vodka soda.
Exactly.
What? I forget it. I gotta go. And then you go to another chiller place and like, can vodka soda? Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. So of course, any last plugs, links, socials you want to put out there?
Oh yeah. So you can follow me on social media at MANKEY HIDEM on basically any platform. You can follow my company at Sunnyside VR, also most platforms, and then my game show at Game Show of Love. So you can follow all my different projects on social media. Yeah, and I guess
Awesome.
and if you're single, apply for the Game Show of Love. Go to our website, gameshowoflove.com, and the application is there.
This is the new Tinder. This is a virtual game show, and this is the new Tinder. It's a funner.
I mean, I hope it's better than Tinder.
more fun or funner, more fun Tinder.
More fun and more personalized too, I think, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Emma, can't thank you enough for coming on. Emma Mankey Hideem, game show, huh?
I said, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Game Show of Love, Sunnyside VR. Links to Emma's stuff in the description below. And Emma, can't thank you enough for coming on. It was a blast. I learned a lot. I'm continuing to be inspired to my viewers. I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know Emma has. Until next time, you know what to do.